Thanks for being here this Sunday. We start in Vermont with a decision that not only will shake up state politics, but could change the shift of power in the United States Senate. With Patrick Leahy not running for re-election, there are a lot of questions today. Who will take his place, and will the state break with tradition and elect a woman? I sat down with someone who used to work with a senior senator, former UVM political science professor Garrison Nelson.
I'm somewhat surprised that Patrick has chosen not to run again. He is presently the fourth longest serving U.S. Senator in history, trailing Bob Byrd, Dan Inouye, and Strom Thurmond. He went ahead of Ted Kennedy earlier this year. Had he run for the 9th term, and he would have had a possibility of becoming the longest serving U.S. Senator in American history. But he entered the Senate in 1975. He was 34 years old, and basically replacing George Aiken. Leahy and Aiken, a combined service of 80 years in the U.S. Senate, which is 1/3 of the history of this country, 80 years. And Aiken was not happy when Leahy announced it. Leahy announced that he was going to run against Aiken before Aiken had formally retired. And that, as a consequence, created tension between Leahy and Aiken. And with Aiken's very close friend, who's the Democratic leader of the Senate, Mike Mansfield, who didn't quite forgive Patrick for announcing so soon. So it was but Patrick has done a wonderful job. He is chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, finally got that job after waiting over 40 years.
And before that, Judiciary Committee, Agriculture Committee.
Right, and on the Judiciary Committee, he was part of the debate of the two most contentious appointments in recent memory: Clarence Thomas's appointment to be Associate Justice and Robert Bork's appointment. Bork's appointment failed, and of course Thomas's was confirmed. And if you want to watch smoke come out of Patrick's ears, mention Clarence Thomas's name to him, because he just felt that Thomas just lied through his teeth during the entire confirmation process. So this is so I would say, as Judiciary Chair, I would say that's where he had his most profound impact. But appropriations, in the House is the taxing body, and so consequently Ways and Means is the most important committee in the House. But in the Senate, that's the spending body. And consequently, the Senate Appropriations Committee, which is the largest committee and the most important committee in the Senate. And you get to be chairman of the Appropriations Committee. You don't give it up. And neither Bob Byrd nor Dan Inouye gave it up. They both died in office. But Patrick, as I say, is relatively young, 82. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's doing this. But that's his decision to make. I wrote an article for Roll Call, appeared back in October, basically urging him to run for a 9th term, but apparently didn't read it, so he's chosen to step aside.
Is there something to be said for him wanting to leave under a Democratic administration?
Yeah, I think the fear obviously is that the Republicans are going to win back both houses. I think he got a better shot at winning back the House than the Senate. I mean, there are 5 Republicans that are retiring, in Ohio and Alabama and in any case, and so they're Pennsylvania. There are 5 retiring, and open seats are a lot easier to capture when you're not running against incumbents. Incumbency re-election rates are huge in the high 80s. And this would be a good time, for Democrats to run quality candidates. And of course, we saw in New Hampshire, Governor Sununu is not going to run, and so therefore Maggie Hassan's fate is is more positive now than it would have been otherwise. So I think this is going to be a disappointment for Chuck Schumer that Patrick is not going to stay on the job. So.
When we talk about the makeup now of the Senate, possibly, and Congress on a whole, Vermont has never sent a woman to Congress. Is there going to be pressure that either the Democrats or the Republicans put a female name forward?
I wrote an article about this too for Vermont Digger about that Vermont and Mississippi were the last two states not to have a female, and then of course when Johnny Isakson stepped down, they named a woman to the Senate in Mississippi. And the article is called, let me see, what if we about Vermont not being Mississippi, and it's not Mississippi. And I think this, just whether or not a woman, I'm not sure it's going to make that kind of difference. But obviously, we have two very ambitious young women eager to run with Molly Gray and Kesha Ram, and I think that's.
Are those the possibilities you're thinking about now on the Democratic side?
Those are the two that have basically made themselves known. I mean, obviously, now that the statement is now official, there may be more. There may be higher placed with more experience.
What about on the Republican side?
Republicans, this is not a Republican state anymore. Republicans are, the only statewide Republican we have is Phil Scott. So Republicans have basically, and there hasn't been a Republican member of Congress since Jim Jeffords switched from the Republican Party in 2001. So Republican prospects in Vermont, congressional prospects are relatively slim. So I don't think that's going to be a big difference.
Will Congressman Welch run for Senate, leaving the House seat vacant?
Oh, of course. He's wanted this for years. And now his problems, of course, is that he'll be 75 next year. And 75-year-old freshmen don't get a lot of power in the U.S. Senate. So, so we're giving up an extraordinarily powerful position for really as I say, a 75-year-old freshman, should he run and win. But he's got to be the odds-on favorite, and so Vermont has had a long history of former House members, becoming senators. Bernie Sanders being one, Jim Jeffords being another, Winston Prouty, Bob Stafford. So we've had so moving from the House to the Senate in Vermont is not unusual.
You know Senator Leahy. You used to work for him.
Worked for Senator Leahy in 1975-76. Back when my hair was dark and he had hair.
What will be his legacy? If we go back a little bit, I think it's easy to think about the past 10 years. But
I would say the legacy for me, the legacy was the Supreme Court battles over Bork and Clarence Thomas, because I've also written a book about the Supreme Court. So that for me would be the legacy. And Vermont has benefited from the Appropriations Committee. Once again, both Inouye and Byrd made sure that West Virginia and Hawaii benefited from their chairmanships. And we have benefited from Patrick's chairmanship, albeit only at this point only a year, but certainly he's been on the committee for about 40 years. So that's something that's going to be hard to replace. And it won't be replaced, put it that way. That's now gone.
What about when you talk about beyond domestic, international? I know he's helped out on Cuba a lot and did a lot of
landmines. He got involved in landmines and with Princess Diana as well. So he did work on landmines, and there was talk of him being, being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work on landmines. So he's been a major figure, but he's been overshadowed. He's been overshadowed by Jim Jeffords' switch from the Republican Party to an independent, caucusing with the Democrats, but not as a Democrat, and of course by Bernie Sanders, who has basically gobbled up much of the oxygen as far as congressional Vermonters are concerned.
Is there something about Patrick Leahy that the viewers don't know?
Well, he's blind in one eye, and he's compensated. But he became a very capable and discerning photographer, And I think once again, having that compromise, being compromised with only one eye, he's basically, but his framing of photographs has been terrific. It's been published in national magazines. And so he is really compensated for that loss. And he's, you know, just, as I say, I'm a big fan, known him for years, educated two of his children. And his youngest child went to high school with my daughter at Burlington High. So, so I'm, you know, very fond of him, and of course, very impressed by Marcel. And clearly, obviously, Marcel's health is factoring very heavily into this decision. And Patrick and Marcel have a real, honest, good, working marriage.
And a love story.
And a love story. I mean, I've seen multiple marriages, political marriages, and they stick together for the sake of, you know, holding office, and may not like each other much. But Patrick and Marcel do adore one another, and it's very evident in all his speeches, where he mentions her frequently. And she has been a total stalwart and a wonderful co-campaigner. I mean, she speaks French fluently. Comes from a French family, and she's a Pomelo, and so she's helped him enormously in the French-speaking areas of the state in northern Vermont.
What will the next year be like in the Senate for him?
Well, what happens the moment you announce you retire, your power just starts to slip away, basically.
The term lame duck gets said, but will that be attributed here?
Yeah. The power will start to slip away. Politics is about the future. What can you do for me? Or what can you do to me if I don't do what it is that you want? So the future aspect of politics renders a person who's retired much, much less power.